Hello and welcome to the Biohack Her podcast. I'm Azra Alagich, your host and founder of Biohack Her. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohack Her is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Biohack Her podcast. As some of you might know, I'm not only a podcast host, but also an integrative nutritional health coach. As part of my mission to help women live well longer, I'm excited to share that I have launched my first Biohack Her product, my Good Gut Granola. I created this recipe after navigating my own gut health issues and struggled to find healthy breakfast options that didn't taste like cardboard. My cranberry and walnut granola is gluten-free and vegan, and each ingredient has been specifically chosen because of its science-backed ability to support longevity. And I haven't compromised on taste to achieve a healthy granola. But I apologize in advance because once you start eating, you will become addicted. It's that Moorish. It's now available for my Australian listeners, and you can purchase it online from www.biohack-her.com, where you can also download a free copy of my ebook, Biohack Her, Live Well Longer, a beginner's guide to biohacking for women to optimize your health. Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome to the Biohack Her podcast, and thank you for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you're here, it's because you're wanting to learn more about longevity, biohacking, and overall health and wellness. And my guest today is going to share valuable insights that are practical and implementable just for you. Alan Graves is one of the founders of Do Not Age, a health research organisation that focuses on longevity. At the time of recording this chat, Alan was CEO of Do Not Age, but has since announced that he is stepping down from that role, now be the company's clinical research advisor. In this frank and diverse conversation, Alan and I discuss what led him to setting up Do Not Age, why he's passionate about longevity, what his top supplement recommendations are, whether he believes we can reverse aging or not, his upcoming first boxing competition as an older man, and how he's preparing, what's in the pipeline for research at Do Not Age and collaborations they currently have underway, what's next for the company, why Alan has set up a philanthropic foundation, and his mission to go to space. Yes, you heard me right. So grab yourself a matcha or a herbal tea, settle down somewhere comfy, and let's dive in. Hey, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Ezra.
Let's dive into why you started Do Not Age. What inspired you? And tell us a bit about your personal journey into the longevity space.
Sure thing. So I realized that aging was malleable in 2019. I had heard David Sinclair speaking, and he was making some bold claims about reversing aging in mice. And where I'm from, you are taught that aging is not malleable and something that happens to all of us. You get old, things start, you get decrepit, things start falling to pieces, and then you have 20 years in a lot of pain, and then you die. And so I figured that was just the way things were. Then when I heard Dr. Sinclair saying these things, I know he's originally a fellow countryman of yourself, he inspired me to go and look at his study. And so I went and looked at the mouse study he was talking about, and I couldn't understand it to start with. So it was written in science speak, and I'm not formally trained, so I couldn't understand it. And so what I did was there was no AI ChatGPT back then. So I used Google definition to each word individually and see what it means in layman's terms, and basically translated the whole paper into words I could understand. And it turned out he was telling the truth. And, these old mice really did reverse their age, and they really did run faster than ever before on this treadmill. And immediately I was hooked, and I was like, wow, we can do something about this. I tried to buy some NMN and Resveratrol, and there was nowhere that was either trustworthy or affordable. And so I thought, well, I can't be the only one having this issue. So let's start a company. And I don't know enough at the time, anything really about the science. So I need to get some researchers on board and scientists, so that we can do this properly. And once I tried to get them on board, I found out they have issues as well. And their issues was funding. They need more funding for their research. And when they do get funding, they tend to get it from a government grant, and they'll be told where to spend it. And that's usually not on aging. So I figured Do Not Age could sit in the middle, so that consumers have got somewhere to come and know that they can trust. We'll only provide the things that actually work, that we do the research and do human trials before we launch them. And then on the other side, we have the researchers who, we can use the profits from Do Not Age to pump back into the research and then keep improving the products, and so on and so on and so on, until aging is solved. That's the short version.
So David Sinclair inspired you, but it doesn't sound like you had any health issues or anything at the time. I mean, you're not an old man by any means. So,
I did. I was feeling the effects of aging earlier than most. I was 29 years old, and the choices I had made earlier in my life, completely my fault, meant that I had, my lifestyle essentially left me suffering from age-related ailments a lot earlier than I should have been.
Yeah, right. And so, are you okay to dive into what those choices were in your younger years that led you to that point?
No problem. I think it's part of the story now. There was a time when I was a bit embarrassed about it, but it is what it is. I used to drink a hell of a lot, pretty much every day. I did lots of drugs, illegal ones, and also violence. There's a bit of a fighting culture in the street and things like that. Not much discipline. So I definitely let my health go at the expense of chasing fun in the day, and I was very much at the whim of my emotions. Lots of casual sex, lots of drinking to excess, lots of drug taking, lots of fighting, and not much use to society in general.
Well, it's a credit to you that you've been able to turn your life around, and now you're doing something that really is contributing to society and helping people to live well longer. And you're certainly not alone in that space. I think there's lots of young men that go through that. And I know my youngest son has gone through a similar experience and is still coming out at the tail end of that. So I can totally relate to what you've been through as a mum. I'm sounding really old now.
Well, you don't look it, so that's a good thing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's all this longevity stuff that we're doing, right? That makes us so young. So what gaps did you see in the supplement longevity industry that led to you creating Do Not Age?
I mean, I think there was nothing focused on the research on longevity that actually, provide the things that actually work. I don't know about you, but if I've ever looked at these supplement companies' websites, they have 10,000 SKUs, and they'll basically sell whatever you'll buy, which that doesn't sit right with me. I figured, well, why isn't there somewhere I can go that only sells the things that I need and the things that actually work? And then try and do it obviously as affordable as possible. But I think I find supplement companies quite untrustworthy in general, very good at marketing, and nothing else. So I kind of created the brand that people want to use and actually benefit from. And it was a big risk, because obviously with the research side means that we can't spend lots of money on marketing, which is what the supplement companies do. But it paid off in the end to some degree. So that's a good thing. I think if you look at things long term, then the best quality is always going to win.
Yeah, 100%. I think your point on trust is an important one. I attended the longevity conference at the National University of Singapore last year. And it was really interesting because they did a study on a whole heap of different companies and their NMNs. And quite a number of them failed the test. some didn't even have any NMN in them.
We've
We
done the
did
same
ask
thing.
Yeah, right. We did ask for them to be for the list to be shared with those that attended, but Professor Andrew Meyer at the time said, "Oh no, we're working with those companies that are keen to make sure that the quality of their supplements are pure, and so it wouldn't be beneficial to the industry to share that information with the broader public." I mean, I was in two minds about it, and it looks based on your body language. I suspect you think the same. But what are your thoughts on regulation around the industry and ensuring that we've got trust in products that we use?
I mean, I think my little conspiracy theory is that if we look at the FDA, for example, in the US, I think they kind of they allow the supplement world to be the Wild West because that gives more credibility to the pharmaceutical world. Because they can say, well, if you use pharmaceutical drugs, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against pharmaceutical drugs if somebody needs it for a medical reason, but usually they are to be taken for a short period of time to deal with issues and symptoms of a disease that will be then cleared up and cured. Whereas these dietary supplements, the ones that Do Not Age provide, are designed to fit in with your lifestyle and be taken now and forever. And so there's a big difference there. But yeah, so I think that's why they do it. They have things like GMP, which, brands tend to shout about as if it's really fantastic, when I just think it's the bare minimum. It's basically making sure that you don't poison people. So I don't think that's something to be particularly proud of. And yeah, I mean, I've seen lots of those things. We did test all the brands that were being sold on Amazon back in 2020, maybe 2021. And none of them contained what they said on the label. The vast majority had no NMN whatsoever. And about the 30 to 40% had some NMN, but not as much as they claimed. And in my naivety back then, I said, oh, Amazon are going to be so happy to find this out and they're going to remove all these products. It's going to be great. We told them, and of course they did nothing because Amazon don't care. They just take a percentage of whatever they buy. And so because of that, we've never sold on Amazon, still don't to this day. And they've been reaching out for many years saying, come and list your products on our platform. And we won't do it because ultimately if someone goes on there and they're not going to, we have proof that it's not real NMN and they don't do anything about it, then that doesn't sit right with us. I think a company called Chromadex did a similar thing. I don't know, it wasn't particularly just with Amazon brands, but I think they did a similar thing with NMN brands a couple of years ago, and it was the same thing there. Ultimately, you've got a white powder that's relatively expensive and very easily faked, and so people are then going to fake it. And that was initially why we brought in third-party testing. So we were the first ones to do that, posted it on our website and said, look, this is our product. You can see that it's been tested. Obviously, we don't really need to do it anymore because of the reputation, but back then we were a bit smaller. And ultimately what happened was the copycats, instead of upping their game and actually having pure products, they would send a pure sample of NMN to the lab to get a document that says this is pure, and then send the impure version, the cheap one, to the customer. And so now you can't even trust purity certificates on someone's website. So it's a very sad state of affairs.
Yeah, and it's really concerning, I think, for the consumer, because we're purchasing products, we're wanting to be able to ensure that what we're putting into our body is what's being sold to us, and yet we've got these companies that are lying to us, and it really doesn't create trust in the industry. And I think that's something that was also discussed at that conference in Singapore. And I think it's incumbent on companies such as yourselves to really sort of shed light on that as well. And it's great to hear that you guys do third-party testing. What other rigor do you have around your supplements, and what in terms of sourcing ingredients and so on as well? How do you go about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we've got a lot of IP because we do research ourselves. Of course, we support a lot of other people's research as well, but because we do our own, that means that, we are the manufacturer and the source of a lot of these ingredients. And then for the more generic products, we own the process. So we just make sure that we are sourcing raw materials of the highest quality, which means it is more expensive. It's more arduous. Sometimes if it's something that grows naturally, you have to you might go out of stock for a while, you might have to wait, etc. But that's the price of quality. And yeah, I think the only reason that the general quality of the industry is low is because the supplement companies are being unscrupulous, if you will, and just purely focused on profit. And there's some argument that in certain industries that's the way it is. That's business, no problem. But I think when people's health is on the line, I think for me that's just questionable. I think that's also why one of the things that people can look out for is these brands hide behind a fancy brand name and fancy website and whatever. I'm sat here at the office now. There's 25 people that work just in the UK branch here. Granted, they're not here now, but that's because it's 10:45 p.m. But this is just one of our branches, and we have it all over. Obviously, most of our research is in America, but we do it globally as well. Whereas these supplement companies that tend to be untrustworthy will just be one person or two people that are really good at marketing, trying to sell you a dream. And I think the more people that support the health research organizations like DoNotAge.org, the more these supplement companies will either go out of business or will be forced to increase their quality, and both of those things I think is a good outcome.
Yeah, 100%. How do you define successful aging, and what does longevity mean to you personally?
I think successful aging is getting older in calendar years without getting older biologically. So you keep your physical and mental function constantly, even as the years pass by. I think that's how I would define it. How would you define it?
For me, it's about ensuring that we continue to live well longer, so that we're not ending up in an aged care facility with a chronic illness, that we're not losing mobility. It's, I want to be dancing on tables until I'm 100, right? So I want to be doing things that I'm passionate about, and as long as I can. I love horse riding. I love traveling. I love using my body. I love being mobile. I love exercising. I want to always continue to do that. So at no point in time do I want to end up with a chronic illness. So I'm very passionate about making sure that I do whatever I can personally to maintain my health. And I think it's incumbent on us as individuals to take responsibility to ensure that, for our own health, that we take responsibility for our own health. And that's, I believe, the future of medicine. It's personalized health, personalized medicine.
Yeah. Be the CEO of your own health. That's what I always say.
Yeah, definitely. So walk us through what your routine would be, Alan, your biohacking routine, your longevity routine. Give us some insight.
Well, that depends. So it all depends on what I'm doing at the time. At the moment, I'm in camp for another fight. I became a professional boxer last year, so in my mid-30s. And I think part of that was because I love boxing, but also part of that was to show people, the power of what you can do if you really start to look after yourself and, dial in your health. Because obviously, for those that don't know, boxing is a young man's game. And, I showed that I can go professional at an older age, older for boxing. And so, yeah, at the moment, it's, a lot of protein. I probably eat a little bit more than I would usually because I'm training so much. And then on the flip side as well, I'm probably not sleeping as much or as I would recommend other people to, just because I still have to work as well as do the boxing training as well. Supplement wise, I am taking pretty much everything that DoNotAge provides, except the short sleep, because, as I say, I'm having to shorten my sleeps at the moment rather than elongate them. And yeah, I'm taking most of those in the morning as well. So there is a perfect time of day to take everything, but it's when you're busy, it's easier just to take most of them in the morning together. As long as the ones that are fat soluble have a source of fat, then you still get the vast majority of the benefit.
What about other hacks and I'm assuming you would do this because you're a boxer, you're training as a boxer, and we were talking offline before, and I was saying that my dad used to be a boxer, and I remember seeing him do this, that, after your workout or after a competition, that you jump into a cold plunge, to recover. Do you saunas, cold plunges? Do you do that sort of stuff as well?
I do. So at the moment, the fight is on the April the 5th. I'm still in the UK at the moment, and so I'm having to train here, just at the warehouse. And so I'm only managing to get to the sauna probably once a week at the moment. But once I get out to Dubai, which is where I finished the camp, I'm going there in a couple of weeks, I will be ice bath and sauna every day.
Yeah, nice. Now, you mentioned that you got into boxing because you wanted to prove that an older man can do this. Can I ask how old you are?
I am 34 now. I was 33 when I turned pro. So professional boxing is obviously something that's for, people tend to turn pro when they're in their early 20s and they've been boxing since they were 5 or 6 years old. And so, yeah, it was, I'm someone that hasn't really boxed before. I've always been a fan of it, but I've never really boxed before. So it was a big stretch.
Yeah, well done. So, Do Not Age offers supplements like NMN and Resveratrol. What makes these
Yeah.
compounds so effective for longevity?
So, I mean, with NMN, it's the direct precursor to NAD. I'm assuming your audience know what NAD is and what it does.
Well, let's not make any assumptions because there might be some people that are new to biohacking. So, explain
Okay.
what NAD is, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure thing. So it's nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a very, very important molecule. Every single cell of your body. Without it, you'd be dead very, very quickly. And it's responsible for, things like the ATP process, which is how you make your energy, over 400 cellular processes across the body. And as you age, your NAD levels decline. They start to decline late 20s. And then by 40, it's not looking good. By 50, you've got half of what you had at 20. And then after that, obviously, it just gets worse and worse. And so, as you can imagine, if your body doesn't have the fuel it needs to do those processes, that's when we see the effects of aging and that decline that we all associate with aging. And so, the problem with NAD is the molecule is a little bit too large for us to swallow. You can inject it and it works just fine. But of course, that requires a nurse and a visit, and it's very expensive and puncturing your skin. And so we use NMN instead, which is the direct precursor. So your body turns NMN into NAD. NAD is extremely important, and we boost it back up by using NMN, which is the direct precursor. It's a slightly smaller molecule than NAD. And so it gets absorbed by the body. And then what it does is the body turns that into NAD, which is what we want. And so, yeah, that hopefully explains why it's super important.
And what about resveratrol? Because there's been a little bit of controversy around resveratrol. And I know this is one of the ones that Dr. David Sinclair was advocating for. And again, there's been some controversy around some of the research that he's done as well. Talk to us about resveratrol, what's in it, and what your thoughts are around the controversy around resveratrol.
I mean, thankfully, I'm really thankful that we'd already supplied resveratrol to a lot of our members all around the world. We've got hundreds of thousands of people taking it every single day before this whole controversy thing hit the news, because then we could see that our members had these benefits and we knew that it was all rubbish. I think there was something that happened a long time ago, something about a patent that was bought by a big pharma company, and then they decided to give up on it, and it was similar to resveratrol, but it wasn't resveratrol. I don't know the ins and outs of it. What I know is the science on resveratrol. It does activate sirtuin-1, which is very important. For those that don't know, sirtuins are the longevity proteins, if you like, in the body. They go around and do all the repair work. You have 7 of them, SIRT1, SIRT2, all the way to SIRT7. SIRT6 is the most important, and SIRT1 is the second most important. And that's the one that resveratrol activates. It has a lot of positive benefits. We have seen it, in the test tube. We've seen it in the mice, and we've now seen it in humans as well. So yeah, I think the controversy was kind of a little bit of people out of jealousy. So the people in the industry, some of them got jealous because Dr. Sinclair became very popular and did very well. He had a book that sold really well, Lifespan. It's a fantastic book if anyone wants to read it.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's mandatory reading for all new Do Not Age recruits. So yeah, I'm a big fan of resveratrol. I still take it. I was having a chat the other day with Alistair Overeem. He was quite a famous UFC fighter, and he came to us and said, "Hey guys, bear in mind he's been fighting at the top level for a long, long time." He said, "I've never had anything like your resveratrol. It opened up my lungs. I feel so much better." He's now retired from mixed martial arts, and he's focusing on longevity, and he's having great success with Do Not Age Resveratrol. So yeah, I don't buy into the hype. I also think as well that a lot of creators, people online, they are rewarded for controversial takes. So if a load of people are taking something, or a lot of people think something, and then there's a way for them to say, actually, the opposite's true, that gets more views than just saying, yes, this is still the case. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes 100% sense. I'm an ex-journalist. I used to be a broadcast and print journalist prior to jumping over to behavioral change. And, it's true. It's all about ratings, and what's novel or what's controversial is what will get the ratings up. And so quite often, that's what people will target. So I totally get where you're coming from on that one. There was some similar controversy around NMN and regulatory restrictions. Where do you see the future of NMN and other similar longevity molecules? Because, it does make it a bit difficult, doesn't it, if they start to have some regulation around it?
Yeah,
here in Australia, with the TGA, it's one of the strictest, regulators, in the world, and there are only a couple of companies that are TGA approved here in Australia for things like NMN.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that we provide all of our products to in Australia, so people have got no worries coming to us. The real controversy for me in terms of NMN is that the FDA is funded by the pharmaceutical industry. So it's 75-ish% of the money that funds the FDA is coming from the pharma industry. And what happened was a pharmaceutical company saw that NMN was very, very powerful and said, hey, we're going to make this into a drug because it's so good. Which is you can't do. So the rules are basically, if something's already been sold and marketed as a dietary supplement, you can't then go, actually, this is really powerful, I'm going to make it into a drug. And that's what they're trying to do. And of course, I think the FDA knows that it's against their own rules. This has been going on for 2.5 years now. I think it was November 2022 when it first started. It's we've always said all along, don't panic, because there are, nicotinamide riboside is a very similar molecule that can also boost NAD. So there are other ways to do it. If they ever do anything rash, you'll still be okay. And we'll make sure that Do Not Age members can still boost their NAD levels. So we're definitely not concerned by it. And there's always going to be a way, I think in the end, good will win. That's my naive take.
No, I like it. I think it's a good position to have. What is your take on, speaking of big pharma, what is your take on pharmaceutical longevity drugs like metformin, rapamycin? There's been a lot of information that's been circulated on social media. I interviewed Professor Nir Barzilai, who's a huge advocate of metformin, and really pushing for that to become a longevity drug. It's obviously for diabetics. And then you've got Dr. Peter Attia, who is a huge advocate of rapamycin. So how does the supplements that do not age compete or compare with those pharmaceutical drugs?
Yeah, me and Peter don't agree on much, to be honest. But yeah, I think, someone like Nir Barzilai, who's out there actually doing the research, very, very well respected. He was heading up the TAME trial, which was basically looking at whether metformin, it really is an age reversal drug. I think they ran into some problems. There was COVID, and then they ran out of funding, and, they've had some issues with that. But I certainly don't think it's a wonder drug, but we can see that it does have benefits in the right use case. But berberine seems to work better. And berberine is a natural product that can be sold as a supplement. That's one of the things that we provide. It's better at controlling blood sugars, which is literally what metformin's job is as a drug. Nature's provided us with a better alternative. In terms of rapamycin, very, very exciting early data, but ultimately what it's doing is it's reducing your immune function. And so you have to be very, very, very careful. Dose is important anyway, but with rapamycin, it's really, really important. I am someone who I've had a gene therapy. I've had all sorts of things that are a bit out there, stem cells, gone to all the South American countries to do all these crazy things and, test them on myself. And I don't take rapamycin. I think, yeah, I'm not going to be taking it anytime soon either. For me, it's just not worth the risk.
Yeah. I tried metformin and it really disagreed with me. And I found much better results from taking berberine. I'm a huge advocate of berberine. I love it. It works really well for me.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a much better option personally. Okay, so what biomarkers should people track to measure their biological age and the effectiveness of longevity intentions? Because how do we know what we're taking is actually working?
Yeah. And I think for people that are into it, like maybe me and you are, it's quite, these things are important. But for the everyman on the street, I think they're not as bothered. They're just like, as long as it works. And so we have options for both. But every marker that you need to track is all done on these biological age tests. There's some really good ones out there now. We have one. There's one called the Dunedin pace test, which is like your pace of aging rather than your biological age. Lots of very, very good options out there now. But as I say, they are intended for people like me and you that sort of are very, very into this. And I don't really think they're necessary, to be honest, for the average person. Ultimately, if you are above a certain age, your NAD levels will be subpar. Your sirtuin 6 won't be as active as it needs to be. There are certain things that are just across everybody.
But so you don't think people should track if they're on NMN as an example, and we're trying to boost our NAD levels? How do we know that it's
Yeah,
working? Should we not track that?
I do. However, I don't think it should stop people that, when you think about it, I don't know the prices these days, but let's say you're spending $60 a month on NMN, right? As an example, you're on a subscription or whatever. If you then add in NAD test kits, which we do offer, we have a very easy, we're the first ones again to pioneer that, the at-home NAD test kit. I think it's around the $200 mark. Now, if you add one of those in every 6 months, it significantly increases the cost. And what I don't want to do is push people out of the affordability bracket. If you can afford it and you want to track it, by all means do. I do. I track it. Absolutely. But I just don't want it to put people off.
Yeah, no, fair call. And you're right. Some of those biological age tests are $500 plus, Australian dollars plus, right? So it can be out of reach for a lot of people. And I think that's one of the things that I'm quite passionate about, because we hear a lot in the media lately of the likes of, many millionaires, billionaires doing all of these extreme biohacks. We look at Brian Johnson. There's, he had a docuseries come out recently on do not die. And for a lot of people, it seems unattainable, right, to do these biohacking. But a lot of your biohacks are cost-free.
Well, this is what annoyed me about the whole thing. Brian Johnson is a net positive, first of all, because he's bringing more eyeballs to it, making people know it's a thing.
Yeah.
But the way the media works, as I'm sure you're aware, is they will cotton onto the bit that sells the click or sells the newspaper or whatever it is these days. And that is that he spends $2 million a year on average on his health. What they don't say is for $2,000 a year, you can get 95% of his results, because the other 5% is these very, very, very new technologies. He's the first one in the world to have it done, or he's developing it himself. And so it's super advanced. And of course, with time, that cost will come down. But the vast majority of his health benefits come from things that cost a couple of $1,000s per year.
Yeah, agree.
I think that was a bit frustrating for me to see all that media hype, and we lost so many potential people that could have been made healthier if they would only be told the truth about it.
Yeah, agree. And I think that there's a place for what the likes of Brian and Dave and so on do, because, they sort of do the groundbreaking stuff, and it's important for them, for people to be able to, see what works and what doesn't work, and, people putting their bodies on the line, doing gene therapy such as yourself, and, to see whether it works or not. And, as it becomes more popular, as you said, then the prices do come down, and then it becomes more attainable to other people. But I think it's important that people understand you don't have to do that to be able to achieve longevity. So on that note, if someone wanted to start optimizing for longevity today, what are the top 3 things you think that they should focus on?
If they're starting from nothing, then I think sleep, exercise, hydration. That would probably be my top 3. Most people are underhydrated. Their sleep quality isn't good enough. So maybe they get 8 hours, but it's broken, or they on their phone up until right before bed. They don't get some sunlight in the morning. All those things affect your sleep. And so quality of sleep is very important. And then exercise is hopefully a relatively simple one. You should be moving your body. Whilst you don't need to do a DEXA scan to know your exact body fat percentage. You probably know if you're overweight or not by looking in the mirror. And so, yeah, move your body, hydrate yourself, and get some good sleep. That would be my 3.
Cool. Good suggestions, I think. What's your take on caloric restriction, fasting, and their role in lifespan extension? There's mixed reports about intermittent fasting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's widely accepted that caloric restriction, does extend your lifespan. But there's also a balance as well, because you need to be able to enjoy your life. You probably want to be doing things in life. So yeah, and we should always protect our muscle mass especially as we get older. Sarcopenia is the fancy name for basically your muscles will just eat themselves, and you'll lose your muscle mass as you get older. And so, in order to keep that up, you have to make sure you're eating enough. And again, the exercise helps as well, obviously moving your body. So yeah, I think there's a place for it. Molecules can, there are supplements that can mimic caloric restriction. Resveratrol is one of those. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary, but I also don't think it's, a terrible thing that nobody should do. I do fasts every now and then. I might do a couple of days where I just have water. It helps get the body into autophagy. It also helps mentally as well to do difficult things, because you get hungry, you really want to eat. And then if you don't do that, it builds that mental toughness.
Yeah, definitely. What are the common mistakes that people make when trying to extend their lifespan that actually work against them, do you think?
Probably treating it like a fad, like a diet. I think that you have to get consistent habits. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it, Think about Cert6 Activator, the single most powerful supplement for age reversal right now. But if you only take it for 1 month, then it's not going to make a huge difference on your healthy lifespan. It's about getting into the habit of taking it every single day. Just like exercise, like sleep, you need to get into the habit, because consistency is key.
Yeah. So on that, what would be your top 3 supplements that you would recommend people take? Because there's so much out there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Again, it all depends on the person. If we're assuming they're above sort of mid-20s, let's say they're 30 and above, then I would say NMN or some form of NAD booster. Cert6 Activator, that's going to be the most powerful one. It's going to be the one that really moves the needle for you. And then I'll try and put one in that's maybe more affordable as well, just, in case somebody's going to choose one of the 3. Creatine, I would say. Yeah, creatine and creatine monohydrate. This is NMN and Cert6. You need to choose high quality. You need somewhere like Do Not Age. Creatine monohydrate, yes, we have a high quality one, but you can find that quite widespread in high quality. So wherever you get your supplements, you can grab that. It's again good for looking after your muscle mass, and it's also very good for memory as well. It has neuroprotective effects on the brain.
Yeah, I found creatine monohydrate an absolute game changer for me in terms of recovery after a workout at the gym. I don't get anywhere near the amount of muscle aches that I used to since I've been on creatine. So it was a game changer for me. The biohacking space, longevity space is moving quite rapidly. What is the most promising technology or intervention on the horizon that you think would significantly extend human lifespan? It's a tough one, I know. Sorry.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Obviously, the gene therapy. Initially, gene therapies that were developed were for those sort of really serious diseases, and so they were basically like, look, if we change your genes and it makes it worse, we can't make it any worse because you're seriously ill. And then, so in order to bring in a gene therapy for something positive for the healthy population, you would have to make sure there's no risks or very few risks. And so like the gene therapy that I had, it was done slightly differently. and there's like a kill switch. If it all goes wrong, you take a pill, and the genes will go back to as they were. It's still a little bit scary to even talk about, and I'm sure it's scary for the listeners as well. But it's also exciting because it's a new part of the field. And then I guess the other one would be the Yamanaka factors. And so essentially these are little factors that you can turn on and off, and then they physically reverse the age of the cell. And if you believe that, they can turn them all the way back to pluripotent stem cells, which is not what you want to do, because then, the eye cell doesn't know that it's an eye, and the finger cell doesn't know it's a finger, and it might come back as a liver cell or whatever. And so the trick is to turn them back to just before that point. And I believe that's what they're working on. People far smarter than myself are working on that at the moment.
Tell us a little bit more about your gene therapy experience. I'm curious to hear where you had it done and what were the results for you. And like you said, it's a scary thing to have done because you don't know what the results will be or how your body's going to react, because it is sort of fairly newish.
Yeah. So I went to a place called Roatan, which is like a little Honduran island. In fact, you mentioned Brian Johnson's documentary. I think they covered it on his Netflix documentary. When I went, the lady that picked me up in the taxi, she worked for the clinic. She said, "Oh, last week Brian Johnson was here," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And so it was a while before the documentary was released, but I guess that's Netflix taking their time. And so it was an island just off Honduras, and it's not even the whole island; it's just a portion of the island where I think like Bitcoin's the currency, and there's no taxes, and they allow you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be allowed to do medically in other areas. And so, it's a bit of a supposedly forward-thinking area. And the clinic were great. They explained all the risks and sort of said, do you have any questions? I said, nope, just stick it in and let's see what happens. And so it was a follistatin gene therapy. Essentially, follistatin is something that fights your myostatin, and it can help you to build lean muscle mass. And we have seen other anti-aging effects in animals, and then it's just not sure yet whether that's going to translate into humans. I mean, I do feel great after taking it, but then I also have stem cells. I take lots of supplements. I exercise, so you never know what's doing what. Obviously, I've also been on my boxing journey since as well. And so extra exercise. Am I in relatively good shape because of the gene therapy or because of the exercise, or a mixture of the two? Mixture of the two is probably the truth, but we'll never know.
That was going to be my next question. How do you know it was a gene therapy or the fact that you've been training for boxing? Because, it's not cheap to get gene therapy. And I must say, when I first started hearing about it, I thought, well, can't you just achieve the same results by going out and doing some strength weight training, and achieve the same amount of muscle? I don't know.
And I do think that in time, it will probably be recommended maybe for people a little bit older. My father, for example, has since had the therapy, has been over and had it. And he's 63, I think, somewhere around there. And so, I think it's going to make a bigger difference for someone like him, probably.
Yeah, so those that might have sarcopenia starting to set in potentially, and then that's where it would have a relevant practice for those people that struggle a little bit more to gain muscle because of their age. Yeah, fair
Exactly.
point. Yeah. Do you believe that we'll reach a point where aging can be fully reversed?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it's as far away as people think either. Yeah. I would love for it to be 2025, but that's not going to happen. But it's definitely, I'm definitely believe it will happen in my lifetime. Absolutely.
What are your next extreme biohacks that you're looking at doing? Have you got anything in the pipeline at the moment that you're considering, that you're exploring?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky now. I'm the clinical research advisor for Do Not Age, so I get to just deal with the research side all day, every day, which is super exciting for me. And so one of the things I'm thinking about, and this is only in my mind so far, I haven't explored it in any other way as yet, but I'm going to space in a couple of years, and I want to try and do some kind of longevity test while I'm there. So yeah, I don't know what that is yet, but there you go. That's something I've not
Wow.
told anybody else yet as well. So you've got an exclusive.
You're going to space. Hang on a minute. Why are you going to space? Tell us.
Well, yeah, I'm good friends with Richard Branson. He's invited me to he's got a lovely island in the Caribbean. I've been there a few times. He's very much into his health, and that's how we bonded. And then, after we'd finished speaking about health, he said, "Oh, did you know I have a space line and we can go to space?" And so I thought, well, that sounds pretty cool. There's a lot of people that have been to space, come back and had a different perspective, a different view on the world. And so I figured it would be worth doing. So yeah, I'm going to space and scheduled for 2027.
That's super exciting. Like that's such a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I would imagine, obviously I've never been to space, but I would imagine that going and experiencing something like that will really make you think about our space in the world, but also in the universe as well, and
Oh
how
yeah,
small we are, when you look at
it's a bit
what's out
scary
there.
when I think about it from Earth. Sometimes I get in my head a little bit and think, and it gets a bit scary. You're like, whoa, we're just this tiny little rock, and yeah. So yeah, we'll see what perspective I get when I go up, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So for Do Not Age, any exciting projects or new products that you're looking at developing at the moment?
Always exciting stuff, which I'm very happy about. We're looking at an ingredient called astaxanthin that's currently in
Oh,
testing
yes.
to see if it lives up to the hype. And yeah, like I say, my sole responsibility here now is handling the research side. We currently are running a number of different interventions internally. I can talk about those if you want, or I can talk about
Yeah.
some of the external research we're supporting, whatever you
All
think
of it.
is.
All of it. Let's talk
Okay.
about all of it.
Okay, good stuff. So there is another trial, another human trial. Obviously, we had the mouse trial back in 2022 for Certix activator, which was really, really groundbreaking. We had to end the trial. We had to choose a date to end it because the mice that were taking Certix activator wouldn't die. It ended up going on over a year longer than we anticipated. Incredible. We were like, right, let's get this into humans. And obviously, since then, we've had our members also taking it, and we can see huge reversals in biological age and lots of success stories, which is great. And then we have the cancer trial, which is going to take decades. And that's basically taking people that have had cancer. Obviously, once you've had cancer, the chance of it recurring is higher. And so we would then give the placebo group a placebo and the Certix activated group Cert6, and then we're going to see if that reduces the recurrence of tumors. We are confident that it will. Obviously, that's going to be quite a bold thing, but it's many years away from any results on that. We have another Cert6 trial with Andrea Maya, actually, that you mentioned from the Healthy Aging Institute in Singapore. It's so much easier to get human trials, the ethical approval for human trials in Singapore than it is in the USA. So we've definitely learned a lesson there. And so, yeah, we're working together with her on that and providing some Cert6. We're looking at basically frailty markers and aging and everything that you can measure quite successfully within a 6-month period. So there'll be a placebo group, there'll be a group taking Cert6, and then we'll see the outcomes that has. Again, we already know really what the result's going to be because we have our members taking it and they tell us.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have, of course, the placebo-controlled clinical trials to be able to talk about it. We are also supporting University of Ulster in Northern Ireland. They're doing a trial with quercetin and seeing if the effects of quercetin and the effects of exercise are synergistic. Because we do see some similarities between exercise and quercetin. And so the thought is, if we take quercetin and exercise, will that just be the same, or will it double up the benefits or triple the benefits? So we're supporting them there. our NMN is being used in a bumblebee trial at the moment. I know that sounds
Hang on.
ridiculous, but
What? A bumblebee trial?
yeah, I know. I'm just thinking, like, how are they going to feed? The first thing I said to these researchers was, how are you going to get the bees to take the NMN? And of course, they put it in water and sugar water and things like that. So it's all very easily doable, but it just sounds funny. And essentially, they're going to be giving exposing these bees, the bumblebees, to something called imidacloprid, which is a very, very commonly used pesticide on all of our food. And it does do the bees some damage. And so obviously we're looking at this from a bee perspective in terms of trying to protect the bee population, but also if the bees that are given NMN are, their symptoms from the pesticide are alleviated, we'll then move that into human trials as well, because then we might be able to help some humans from the, harmful damages of pesticides. So yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff happening that way. And yeah, we're also testing internally the like a sort of all-in-one powder where we put pretty much all of our products into one sachet and just make it so that you can chuck it into a drink and take it every day. We're making sure, obviously, there's no contraindications, making sure everything still works as well as it should do. So yeah, that'll be exciting if it works, but these things do take time.
How would that, with that last one, how would that work in terms of individual stacking and ensuring you've got the right dosages, because we're all so biologically different. And I suppose that's one of the things that I think the concept's great, and it would be great if we just could throw it all into one product and just have to take one thing rather than a cereal bowl of pills, which is what I currently do at the moment.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at what is the sort of standard, what would be the average, because whilst it would be, some people would take the product because they don't want to take 20 capsules a day. Obviously, for those that do want to dial it in, and we're going to be very clear about this as well and say, look, the perfect time of day to take this is probably sometime in the afternoon, but we've put it in this morning drink because of ease. You still get 90% of the benefits. If you want 100%, take everything separately. And there will still be people that do that. But I think the mass audience, if you just say to them, look, you can get most of these benefits just by taking this one thing in the morning, I think that's quite appealing to them, rather than, oh, by the way, you've got to take 25 capsules and you have to remember at 2:40 to take this and 3 a.m. to take this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we're trying to make it more appealing to more people, because we already have the biohackers, right? The biohackers are already dialed in. We've got them healthy, great stuff, and now it's let's get to the rest of the population. Because a lot of them are sleepwalking into what I would consider an early death.
Yeah, definitely agree, and it would be good to be educating people more, which is what I think we're doing here today. To let people know that this is something that they can take control of and that they can improve, and that they don't have to ultimately end up suffering in their old age with some sort of chronic illness. And we don't want that. Now, you've also set up a foundation, so tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. So just the Alan Graves Foundation. I've been doing this kind of work for a few years. It's essentially all the philanthropic stuff that I do that's not age research related. Because obviously all the age research stuff that we give back is just done through Do Not Age. And yeah, I also give to children's hospitals. I like to support some war veterans as well, reintegrate into society. A lot of them have mental health issues. Help in times of disaster. So there was wildfires recently, there was hurricanes recently. So yeah, just helping as much as possible. We've built schools for underprivileged children in Indonesia. I'd like to do Mexico later this year as well. So yeah, just helping out as much as I can. The foundation is alangraves.org. We have a bare bones website up. If anybody wants to support, then it'd be fantastic. One of the rules of the foundation is that nobody that does any work for it, obviously including myself, can be paid for it. That everybody has to be a volunteer, and this ensures that every single penny of every donation goes exactly to where it should do. One of the things that I was frustrated with in my youth was, I'd raise money for, I'm not going to name them, but a big charity. And then to find out later that it's about 10% of the money that I donated, and anybody donates, goes to where you think it's going, and the rest is admin and wages and all these other things. So yeah, I don't want that for my foundation. I want all the money to go to the people that actually really need it.
Well, sounds like a great cause, and I'd love to get involved as well, actually, because I love doing that sort of stuff. So we'll have to have a chat offline about that.
Excellent.
Now, I had Nick on the show recently as well, Nick Engara, and
Oh yeah.
so you guys were involved in the Docuseries. Tell me about your experience, with the Docuseries.
Yeah, so that was where I first met Andrea. That was how the trial in that we're working together on Certis Activator started. Because she was like, "Oh, I'd love to do this, this, and this, but we need some funding." And I was like, "This is what we do." I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, we need 50,000 just to get going." I'm like, "Yep, no problem. Let's get going." And so sometimes you just need that face-to-face meet to overcome a hurdle that you didn't know you had. Anyway, the docuseries was called Reversed, and Nick hosted it very, very well. By the way, he's a fantastic host. They invited me on. A so-called expert. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but yeah, I think I was helping with the translational side. So a big part of what I do here is, you remember I said about my story when I first read that scientific paper and I couldn't understand a word of it. Now that's a big part of my role, is all the science not only that we're doing but that's happening around the world. Is translating that into layman speak. And so I think that was part of what my job was on, Reversed as well, was because, most people that are watching it are going to be just a normal person, as they would say. And so whilst it's great to have the professors like Andrea Meyer on there, I was there to sort of bring a little bit of, here's what this actually means for you and here's what you can do about it,
Yeah. No, I watched it. It was a good show. So, and I think those sorts of docuseries are a great way of getting like normal people, like the couple that you had in as well, and showing how doing some simple things can really help improve people's health and longevity. So, well done.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah, definitely. One more question before I let you go. What does it mean to you to live well longer?
What does it mean to me to live well longer? I would say it means everything to me, because I am someone that's very excited about life. I'm always busy. I like achieving things and doing positive things. So to think that this life will have to end within 80 measly years scares me to death. Pardon the pun. So yeah, for me, it just means continuing to be able to do everything that I want to do, and having a positive impact on the world for as long as possible.
Lovely. Well, Alan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you share your insights and tell us all the exciting things that Do Not Age are doing. And we're going to have to get you back on the show after your space experience, because I want to hear about the longevity experiment that you're going to do up there.
Yes, sure. I'm happy to do that. Well, thank you again for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.